good. After the things I said to him last night about his legs and the shorts, I didn't think he was going to come back. But I'll tell you what, you know?
You were just jealous.
Well, I'm just saying, you got sexy legs, buddy. I don't think it's it. All right.
You know how many donkey kicks I have to do to get these bad boys?
Well, if you sing as well as your legs look, buddy, we're in for a treat. You
guys put a lot of pressure on me.
John Parsons was a lot more interested in his secretary than he was in selling real estate. But when we were in Iowa, there were two good things that came out of that marriage, and one was my daughter Harriet, and the other was when I went to the motion pictures. And sitting in that theater, and seeing those faces on the big screen, and the romance, and the Barrymores, and Douglas Fairbanks Jr., and Clara Bow, and Mary Pickford, I was smitten with the glamour of the motion pictures. And I knew that's what I wanted to do. So when John Parsons took off, I took little Harriet, and we moved to the closest big city, Chicago. And I did get a job writing for what was then a very young Chicago Tribune. I did that during the day, and at night I got a job at S&A. S&A was a company that took scripts from anyone who wanted their story to be made into a motion picture. And I read the scripts. Everyone was desperate to get into business. Some of those stories came on napkins or notebook paper. Some were actually typed. And I was a busy, busy mother taking care of my little Harriet. And I started to think, why can't I put these two loves of mine together? The love of the motion pictures and my love of writing. I was fascinated with these faces with these people, these stars. And I was fascinated to find out who they were and what they were like and what they were doing and what was their private life like. Well, you know, Chicago is halfway between New York and Los Angeles and Hollywood. And what I discovered is that all the aspiring actors and actresses and starlets would be traveling back and forth between New York and Hollywood. And the train always stopped in Chicago. And at that train station, there would be a 2-hour wait. So I'd go down there and I'd strike up a conversation. If they were in a conversation, I'd listen in. I'd follow them to the restroom. I'd follow them down the hall. And I was able to get some great little scoops and interesting tidbits about these actors and actresses. I put them together in a column and pitched it to the Tribune, and they gave me my first break. People ate it up. They loved knowing about the movie stars. Now, of course, not all of it was true. I've always not been real good with the facts. I like to give people what they want to hear, you know? And so much of it was image. Theda Bara, who played in the silent films. Theda Bara is really an anagram for deaf Arab. She was a seductress, and she was mysterious and very, very glamorous. Well, really, it was Theodora Goodman. And she was nothing like that. It was all an image. I painted myself, instead of a woman who got dumped by her husband, as a World War I widow left with a young child. The column started attracting attention, especially from the man who owned the papers, William Randolph Hearst. And he moved me to New York. The column was bringing in more readers and was making him some good money. He even set me up in an office with 2 or 3 phone lines. And we hired some would-be starlets like Hedda Hopper to go and listen in at doctors' offices and in bathrooms and all the different places where those starlets and those actors might be hanging out, and call my office with the scoop and with the tidbits, with news about these stars. They called it the House of Cats. Now, during that time, very briefly, I did get married once again to a guy by the name of Captain Jack McCafferty, but he didn't understand. He didn't understand why there were so many phone lines in and out of our house all the time. The phone was always ringing, and there were these cat ladies that were sitting always in the dining room. So he just kind of disappeared. But the column became bigger and bigger and bigger. I ended up with a lifetime contract with Hearst Publishing. William Randolph Hearst was probably the most powerful man in the entire country. The richest, most influential. He wanted to get into politics. At one time, he wanted to be president. And we all know what a wonderful president a great businessman like him would make. And he loved to go to the shows, and he loved showgirls. And he spotted one showgirl by the name of Marion Davis, and he spotted her when she was only 14, on the stage in a chorus line. Mr. Hearst waited until she was a proper 17 years old before he took her on as his mistress. He was pretty close to 50 years old. He was madly in love with Marion Davies until the day he died. And he was very grateful to Louella Parsons because I introduced Mr. Hearst to Marion Davies. And it was I, in my column, who would always write, "Marion Davies never looked lovelier. She's a wonderful," it didn't matter that she got terrible reviews, "she's a wonderful actress. She should be in more pictures. Why aren't they casting her more?" And Mr. Hearst was very, very grateful. There are 2 reasons why I got that lifetime contract, and Marion Davies was one of them. The other reason happened on a recreational boat ride. Mr. Hearst invited some very special people to go on his yacht, the Oneida, in California on the coast. And of course he invited me, and he invited a young producer by the name of Thomas Ince. Of course Marion Davies was there, and a very young and very, very handsome, what they were calling the boy genius, Charlie Chaplin. And of course there was a lot of alcohol on the boat. I mean, yes, it was prohibition, but we're talking movie stars in Hollywood. Those laws don't apply to any of us. And I don't know what happened after a party, but we heard a gunshot. So I threw on my dressing robe and I ran to see what had happened. And when I was in the hallway, in one of the galleyways of the boat, I saw some of the crew wheeling somebody out on a stretcher. And it was a young producer by the name of Thomas Ince. Now, is there anyone in the audience who works for Mr. Hearst here? Thomas Ince had a bullet hole right here. Now, Mr. Hearst said, oh, there's nothing to see. Everybody just go back to bed. Thomas Ince just had a heart attack because he drank too much and ate too many salted almonds. The authorities were never notified. There was no autopsy. Some of the other people on the ship said they believed that Mr. Hearst, in the middle of the night, caught Charlie Chaplin and Marion Davies kind of cadoodling, ran back to get his gun, came back and fired, and all the excitement killed the wrong guy. Some of the other folks on the ship said they thought that Thomas Ince was flirting with Marion Davies, and that's why he ended up. But you never heard it from me, because I have a lifetime contract. And some of these young stars, Marlon Brando, Marilyn Monroe, they don't think it's important to talk to Louella Parsons. They don't even care if they get mentioned in the column or anything anymore. They just don't even want to have the publicity. What are you doing here?
That's because you're too old.
I am not old, Hedda. I'm just 4 years older than you.
She's been lying
2 years
about
older
her
than
age
you.
forever.
Maybe I'm just 1 year older than you. I've just never been really good at numbers. But I'm...
What?
All right. That's it. I'm taking off and I'm getting secure.
Well, since you did bring your copy of Hedda Hoppers from under my hat, I guess I will just have to give you some of the highlights of it, okay? Chapter 1. Well, I entered this world June 2nd. Now, don't go asking me what year. I don't want anybody chasing me around wheelchair. I came in screaming. My mama said she didn't know which was louder, the thunderstorm or me. Obviously, it was me. Born with 2 good lungs, I can shout down any Hollywood producer to this day. Now, I was born in Pennsylvania. We moved to Altoona when I was 3. It was a family of 9. I know how to cook and clean and run a butcher shop. But you don't want to hear about that, do you? You want to hear about romance, right? Yes, you do. I'm certain you do. Here, let me pull up this chair. Well, I did have a beau in Altoona. He was a dentist, and I thought that I would marry him until we went to a picnic one day, and I saw him in a bathing suit, and after a day in the sun, he looked like an orange orangutan. I thought, I don't think I'm going to marry him, but I did hang around with him long enough for him to take me to see Ethel Barrymore. After I saw Ethel Barrymore, it changed my life. We were sitting in the trolley, and he said to me, "What's wrong with you?" I said, "Shh, I'm making a decision." And he said, "Yes?" And I said, I've decided to become an actress. And once I made that decision, there was no stopping me. I used to read novels at night and act out the scenes. And I would sing louder than anyone in church because I thought I was a prima donna. I had two notes, high C and low C, and it was an abyss in between. My favorite hymn was Onward Christian Soldiers. Onward Christian Soldiers. I still love that song. Oh, big wide open spaces. My papa loved them. He left us for the Klondikes to find a fortune. And we had the butcher shop and had to collect all the bills that he wouldn't ask people for money because he thought they would go elsewhere for the business. So my brother tried to collect the bills. He failed. So I went up to Mama and I said, "Let me try to collect the bills." She laughed at me and said, "What do you know about bill collecting?" And I said, "Well, they know that they owe Papa money, right? And they know you're a fine woman, right? And they know I'm your daughter, right?" Well, she knew I would never give up, so she gave me the bills. And I said, "What would an actress do on stage if she wanted something?" I roared like a lion. I cooed like a dove. I laughed. I cried. I fought. I was the most fighting 14-year-old bill collector Altoona had ever seen. And I gathered enough money for my family to live on. Oh, when Papa came home. And after a while, things just became intolerable, and then I went to New York. And in New York, that's where I met DeWolf Hopper. This book would not be written if not for DeWolf Hopper. Wells, loudest in Hollywood gets all the attention. So I resolved to see all, hear all, and tell all, and let the chips fall as they may. They gave me a column for Hollywood fashion. Ladies, you look lovely in your hats. That closed down, and then I did a radio show, and they canceled it because of my accent. And then the Los Angeles Times gave me Hedda Hopper's Hollywood, and the rest, they say, is history. My son Bill, he said, in the early days of the column, I was more of a Dear Abby to the stars. People would call me if they needed advice on how to propose. Lee Tracy, he called me because he had, in a drunken evening in Mexico City, relieved himself over his hotel balcony onto the heads of the Mexican army. Gary Cooper asked me how to stave off an impending scandal with his wife. I said, "Go home and tell her before it breaks." He did, and it saved his marriage. But I think the most juicy scandal of all was Charlie Chaplin. Jane Barry versus Charlie Chaplin. Now, Charlie Chaplin had a reputation with his leading ladies. They would be nobody, and then they would be on top of the world, and then they would be nobody again. But one woman, she came rushing into my office, panicked, and she goes, "I'm pregnant!" And I said, "Why are you telling me?" And she said, "Because you wrote that column about Charlie Chaplin's leading ladies." And then it dawned on me, that's Joan Barry. She was his starlet, and he let her go from the movie. Well, she went to confront him, and he put her in jail. And then she went back, and he put her in an asylum. I got her out of the asylum, and I wrote a column all about it. And they printed it. Oh, it caused quite a stir. During the trial, I showed up at court unannounced. A photographer said, "Would you stand next to Charlie Chaplin for a picture?" If looks could kill, I'd be dead. Oh, but Charlie got his revenge. When he married Miss O'Neill, Eugene O'Neill's 17-year-old daughter, he gave all the pictures to Louella. The poor LA Times had nothing, neither did the AP. But I got the last word with Charlie Chaplin. I helped Mr. Hoover with all of his political leanings. He supported Stalin. He didn't give $100 to the United States armies during World War II. He was a communist, and I let Mr. Hoover know. Eddie Hoover and I had a good relationship. We write letters all the time back and forth. I am proud to say I think I got Charlie Chaplin out of this country. Now, are any of you communists? Well, if you know any communists, you just let me know. I have a nice FBI file with Mr. Hoover. You know, sometimes people in Hollywood just think we're stupid. You know? Nancy Sinatra. She was asked, do you think Mia Farrow's son is actually Frank Sinatra's son? And she said, nonsense. Nonsense? Let me ask you this question. Okay, let's look at this. Now, this is Ronan Farrow.
No, I don't know why we couldn't ever just be friends. Oh my God. All right. Hedda,
Yeah.
look at these people out here.
Oh, they think we're going to kill each other.
They're just dying to see some of this catfight stuff, aren't they? But
Gossip,
what
gossip,
thirsty
gossip.
crowd, I'll tell you, yeah. You know,
What?
I think Hedda, actually, you know, if you and I ever really did put our heads together, we could rock this town.
We'd own this town.
I think so.
Are you hungry?
You know what I think I